Hello everyone, my name is Mark, this is Why I Hate the World. How you guys doing? So it's been about a week since our election, and a lot of people are still very upset. There's still ongoing protests out there. There's lots of accusations of malarkey and shenanigans and that kind of thing. And people are very angry still because now it appears that Hillary has won the popular vote by more than 1 million votes. Which, if you think about that, so there's 1 million people out there, like more, who voted for her than the guy who's actually going to be president. And some people are mad at that. And there are claims now being thrown around that Trump stole the election. Right. And, I mean, the thing is that when you look at it, there's some compelling arguments there, but you got to take them with a grain of salt. So what do I mean by that? Well, the first one that I've seen is there were stories before the election about how people have been kicked off of voter rolls and things like that. They call it a cross-check, Operation Cross-Check, in several Republican-led states where they would take this list of names of similar names, right? And it would be like, Harold Washington, and he lives in Virginia, and then another Harold Washington who lives in, North Carolina, and they would conclude that that's the same person, and then they would kick both those people off without any real evidence or investigation or anything like that. And apparently thousands of people have lost their vote because of that. Now that kind of voter suppression tactic is not new at all. The Republicans are very notorious for this kind of shit. They did the same thing in 2004, in 2000, and 2008, right? And the thing is that, yes, it does affect results, right? The reason why Obama won in 2008 and 2012 is because there were more voters than they were able to suppress, basically. Like, more people voted than they were able to kick off the rolls or they were able to challenge or anything like that. And this time around, that just didn't happen. This time around, the left, the liberals and the Bernie supporters and things like that couldn't get behind Hillary Clinton. And there's a graph that I saw recently that shows the number of Obama supporters in the last two elections, and then versus the number of people that had actually voted for Hillary, and it's like something like a third of she got like a third of the number of people that voted like for Obama. It's like, it's no wonder she lost, but right, that's not what we're talking about. But voter suppression most definitely probably did have an impact on the election. And who knows, because in some of these swing states she lost by a very small amount, something like one or 2 points, where those people could have made a difference, right? Speaking of that, the other little bit of evidence that kind of makes me think there might be something to this is that the exit polls in four Republican-led states didn't match the actual vote totals. Those states being Florida, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, right? And the thing is that in most of those states, in North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and I think even Florida, right before the election, she was also ahead in the pre-election polls as well, in the average. Right, so now it's like, so the pre-election polls, people are saying, yeah, we're going to vote for, we have the election. As they leave, they're telling exit pollers, yes, we voted for her, and then she ends up losing, right? Now, a lot of people out there are saying, well, obviously the polls have had problems this time around, right? Which they did. I mean, all the polls were saying she was ahead, right? And that she should have won. And so there's some things that are people saying, well, exit polls, obviously they're flawed. They didn't get the right story. It's like, well, not exactly. I mean, exit polls are far more accurate than pre-election polling, simply because you're not, here's the thing. You could have a poll a week before the election, and then someone can change their mind. Something can happen, like, for example, a scandal, like, I don't know, the FBI saying they're investigating your candidate. Something like that. Something like that can happen, and then people can change their mind, and then, not vote that way that they said that they were going to vote in the poll. Right. Exit polls are different. Exit polls are like you just walked out of the place and there's a polling guy saying, who did you vote for? And then you just choose to tell him, you know? And so here's the thing is that they're usually very accurate. See, this is what people don't understand is that polling is an actual science. You know, it's statistics. There's a science behind it, and especially exit polling is like far more accurate than pre-election polling. And most of the time, it's used to determine if there are, you know, irregularities in elections in other countries, like, you know, in the third world or something, some dictators throwing a sham election, and then you go, well, the exit polls say you didn't win. You know, we use it like to, you know, in developing countries and in other democracies where we don't trust election results, you know, exit polls are one of the tools to determine if there was like cheating going on. Well, how come it's like, you know, every other country on earth we trust them, but not in America? Why is that? You know, is there something unique about America where just people don't tell the truth after they like take, you know, after they vote? I don't know. I mean, there are some things people are saying. It's like, you know, well, they're not, they didn't count early voting. Yes, that's true. Exit polls don't count early voting. And then they don't, you know, another thing I saw is that there was a red shift, meaning that Republicans just don't take exit polls. Well, that's not necessarily true. I mean, if you look at the actual polling data, it's a pretty even, you know, distribution between Republicans and Democrats and independents and shit like that. So it's like, you know, that's I don't think that's accurate at all. Here's the thing is that it seems like in the last, you know, couple of elections, the exit polls are only inaccurate in states in which Republicans win. Okay. The same shit. So for example, in Florida, right, the exit polls didn't match in Dade County, right, which, you know, Bush won. But then you take into account those votes which were thrown out, and it does match. Okay, it's just sort of like they're saying it doesn't match because Bush won. Well, the ones that, you know, were tossed because of hanging chads and shit, you know, shows that if you would have counted those, that Gore actually carried that county, and the exit polls were you know, accurate. The same shit happened in Ohio in 2004. You know, there's exit poll said John Kerry won Ohio, right? Turns out Bush actually won Ohio. Why is that? Okay. In every other state in the country in that election, the exit polls were accurate. Same thing here. You know, every state in the country except for these 4 states, the exit polls are accurate. You know, something doesn't add up. And it wouldn't be really the first time that, you know, the Republicans have done something shifty to win an election. You know, I don't know if you guys remember fucking Ronald Reagan, right? And the whole, you know, why do you think, you know, the term October surprise, like, where does that come from? Well, there are allegations that the Reagan team went to Iran, you know, back, because there was like an Iran hostage crisis going on, and tried to convince the Iranians to not release hostages until after the election, you know, to make, you know, to make Jimmy Carter look bad, right? And, you know, so this is, I mean, of course, this is where we're starting to delve into conspiracy theory here, right? But there is ample evidence that that actually happened, you know, Iran-Contra scandal, shit like that. If you go to, you know, 2000, we all know the story there, okay? You know, the recounts going, and then, you know, the Republicans get the Supreme Court to fucking, you know, stop the recount, and, you know, you know, if those recounts would have continued, Al Gore would have won, okay? So it's like, that's not a conspiracy. That shit actually happened, all right? So that's the thing is that, you know, it's not unheard of, right? Let's put it that way. It's not like there isn't precedence for this kind of election shenanigans, right? Just one word of caution, though, is that you need to, when you think about, when you investigate stuff like this and you immerse yourself in things like this, it's very easy to fall into a conspiracy theorist sort of mindset, where you start drawing connections between things that don't have connections, and you start, you know, you start taking theories and speculation as gospel truth. Right. So as of right now, there is no evidence. I want to make that clear. There is no evidence that this election was stolen by Donald Trump or the GOP or any operatives like that. Right. There is, you know, it looks funny. It looks fishy, right? But that doesn't mean that it actually happened. So, you know, be very careful when you throw around, when you throw around, accusations like this, because that's kind of what they do, right before this. See, here's the thing is that it was so bad before this election that, it was only a week ago, right? And I'm sure you all remember how the Republicans and everybody was saying that the system's rigged. It's rigged. We're going to lose because it's rigged. Because Hillary is getting illegal aliens to vote 17 times and shit like that. Well, maybe the system really is rigged, but it's rigged in his favor. And I'm not saying that we should, reverse the election or Hillary should be president or any shit like that. In fact, I think the last 10 days are a pretty good, measure of what a Trump presidency is going to be like, which it's going to be a fucking train wreck every week. I mean, it's only been like 11 days and he's had like, fucking 100 scandals. It's ridiculous. But what needs to happen is that, this kind of thing needs to be, it can't be thrown under the rug. It should be investigated, and our election process needs to be strengthened so that shit like this doesn't happen, right? Because, if people can't trust the elections, right, that's the real reason why there's never any like persecution over this kind of thing. No one ever goes to jail for for election fraud, because the integrity of the elections must be respected. Must, in order to have social cohesion, in order to have, an effective transfer of power, and, to keep society stable. And if people start thinking that elections are rigged and stolen, shit's going to hit the fan in this country, right? So it has to be done the right way. We have to do it by strengthening the system, passing laws, keeping people from getting thrown off the rolls, right? Making sure the computer systems behind it are hack proof, that kind of thing. So, anyway, adios, folks.